We are welcome everyone to the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. Thank you for attending, and I hope you're having a great conference. I'd like to introduce Martina Grom. Martina is presenting a session titled Best Practices for Using Microsoft 365 for Crisis Communications. Take it away, Martina.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Martina Grom. I'm a Microsoft 365 MVP since a couple of years now. And I'm happy to present on the Microsoft 365 Virtual Marathon. Instead of being in Las Vegas and celebrating the SharePoint conference, and what I wanted to do in the next 45 minutes is just to share some best practices I learned since mid of March when we went into that crisis. What we have done and developed with customers and partners to look into a good scaling of what tools to use, how to use SharePoint, how to use Teams, Yammer, and so on to onboard users very fast and also to support end users to get into a remote work scenario very quickly. So what we will do today is, and I'm just going into my next slide, is just to go through the slide deck where we see that next year we will have the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Conference in Las Vegas. And also thank you for all of the sponsors. It's especially important to have sponsors even on virtual conferences because it's a big effort to do them, and it's also very interesting to have sponsors on a virtual conference as well, that we see how it looks like. So also you can win a virtual raffle, you can see that, and also please consider to go into GoFundMe and make a donation for the current situation we are facing here, and please just do that and support others, and also support information workers and also medical personnel, because we need to keep running even in that situation, and we need to go into a new normal as we see it very often currently. We can't meet in person, but it's extremely important that we stay in a good connection. And this is also what I wanted to share with you. It's if you talk about knowledge, and we all love to speak about the topics we are passionate on, also consider that knowledge increases when you share it and pass it on to your coworkers, to other persons, to get them motivated to learn new things and so on. This hasn't changed. And we can still meet virtually. We can also meet in other situations, and we can also go in virtual conferences or have a virtual coffee or chat or something else. So this hadn't changed. So the story of my session today is what we have learned when going through a crisis like we face it today. And no one has ever thought about that. I was traveling Europe, supporting Microsoft Ignite the Tour. I was in Milan, I was in Prague and in Copenhagen, and we went through that and we thought, oh, there's something going on, people get ill, and how can we manage that? And we had no clue what will happen to us. And also what we learned then in the middle of March in Austria, we went in kind of a lockdown, and very fast things approached. So for us in our company, we sent our employees home, they're working from home, but we probably hadn't a situation because our people were used to use their home working scenarios, their notebooks, they can go easily online and so on. And what we learned with our customers, and this was very interesting for me, especially in the beginning, is because I work a lot in Microsoft 365 governance, security, adoption and change management projects. And we went into light speed onboarding users in a very fast time frame. and so on. And also one of the main scenarios, what I saw in the beginning, is digitalization is a reality, and it happens very fast. And what I saw, and this was also a very interesting learning for me, I checked up with all of my companies and said, do you need something? Can I help you? Can we support you? And so on. And some companies just said, oh, Martina, we are fine. We can work from home since a while now. It's all going very smoothly. We need to check some things, but we are happy so far. Other companies just said, okay, we bought notebooks for all of our employees and sent them home and make them to work from home, and so on. And what we learned in the last 10 to 12 weeks is that working from home is not an exception anymore. So people won't ask in the future about that. It will become kind of a normal situation, because currently people are going back into their offices, but sometimes you see 50%, sometimes you see 30% of employees working in the office, and others are still at home and working from home. And also what I learned with my customers is that an organization also needs to communicate in one way or the other. And that means if you have an organization with a management, with decisions and so on, they need to find a communication way. And it's much easier for them if they already had deployed, for instance, Microsoft Teams, because then they can start chatting and communicate, doing video conferences and so on. Other organizations really struggled because they didn't have any communication scenario in place yet. And those are the organizations which had to onboard a lot of users in a very short time frame. And we worked with them on plans, and this is what I want to share today. Also, for people who know me, I work a lot in security, and I care about governance and security and compliance. And very often when I speak with my customers, I also talk with them about the cyber resilience plan. And not a lot of customers have those cyber resilience planning in place, because we don't need that. It's running, it works. It works on my machine, it works for my organization. I do not care. Those things changed now, and now we are talking about, okay, how can we keep things up? How can we keep our employees working from home, stay secure, and so on? And also, how can we work on a cyber resilience plan in the future? Because things change and things happen. And one of the points around governance is also when you are onboarding users in a very short time frame, you do not care a lot about governance. You do not have any regulations in place. You just want your employees and your teammates to go online and work and start working again and communicating and so on. And very often, currently I get the question, can we have an after the fact governance? And the answer is yes, you can. And you should do that, because just because you did things very fast doesn't mean you can't manipulate them, control them, or change them after the fact. And also, one thing my customers learned very fast is security does not end at your endpoint. And this is a fundamental thing, because very often organizations are thinking, my machine needs to be secure, my mobile device needs to be secure, my firewall, my network perimeter is the thing I need to care. And now you have people outside the organization who just need to connect and work from there. So also you need to think about security in a much broader way as you have it. And also, what I wanted to share from a private perspective is, please stay safe and healthy, and also keep a routine in place. If you're working from home, things can go in another direction as you expected that. So probably you don't move the whole day. Go for a walk, go outside, go into the sun, and so on, and keep a routine in place, which will help you to manage the working from home scenarios. And also what I learned with some of my customers, we did virtual happy hours. we did virtual coffee drinks. We just shared other communication scenarios where we can see, okay, we share that, we share private life, we also share, it's kind of a water cooler conversation. You can do that virtually as well. And this is also something of the things I learned is turn on your camera, make yourself becoming a person, because currently many people are just talking to a display for the whole day. And this is kind of a very isolating situation for many of them. So make yourself a person, make you visible, show what you are, show your emotions and so on. You can't show that if you turn off your camera and are not visible to others. So the topics we talked today, and this is just what I thought and what I learned with my customers, what are fundamental if you have that kind of situation. So one of the things is, first of all, I want to talk about external access. So everything you have to make sure if you have employees working from home or if you have to connect from somewhere. So first of all, you need to have a reliable external access scenario. People trust you and trust your infrastructure and the things you give them, and you also have to make that work. On the other side, what I learned very often with my customers is you also need to have kind of a crisis communication strategy. And this could be supported with the help of SharePoint and Yammer, that you have a good crisis communication in place. People need to have a place where they can find their information, to have an org-wide communication where they can collaborate and communicate. And then also, if you have a small team which just helps a lot of people getting online, which are not used to use Teams and so on. What we learned as a best practice, and I love that, is do Teams live event. Make an office hour every week on Wednesday, 8 a.m. in the morning, and let people go into the live event, ask their questions and so on. Because the advantage here is people come together, they can ask questions, you can answer them. So you reduce the effort on your ticket system. So people do not open tickets anymore. They said, okay, I can wait till Wednesday, 8 a.m. I will ask all my questions there, and I get them resolved immediately with the team. And also what you can do as well, and this is also one of the best practices we wanted to share, we implemented a health bot system, and there's a very nice health bot out of the box. You can use it and can do that. And speaking about Teams live event, you are currently in a Teams live event, but also what we learned about that, if you're starting with Teams live event just for onboarding to Teams or to SharePoint and anything, you get a lot of attention also from executives. And they said, oh, Martina can do that, I can do that as well. And this is also something which is quite interesting, because also the management wants to talk to the organization and get back a connection to the employees they haven't seen for 8 weeks, not 8 months. And also last point is again governance and security, what you can do here and how you can keep trust in the working scenario. So first point I wanted to show is external access. One of the things I learned with my customers, and this is something I do with all my deployment projects. If you haven't done a network assessment, this is the time. There is a pretty good network recommendations from Microsoft. You can just, I will share it in the links. You can look at that and you can work through that. And that also means your people work from home, they have a home network connection. You need to make sure they have a reliable internet connection. So also this is something you need to take care of. Also, what I learned with some of my customers, I get a lot of complaints on Microsoft 365, it's so slow. I can't work there. And then we discovered that people connect through a VPN connection to their organization and then have the breakout into the internet. And that means if you're not using technologies like split VPN and let the people have the connection directly from their home connection. They first have to connect into your organization and then go outside. And that costs time and also is very slow. So you also have to learn in the network assessment or anything else, if you have a VPN connection in place, just talk with your IT that they implement split VPN. Otherwise, some of my customers just made the general recommendation to all of their employees that they said, please turn off VPN if you have to connect to Microsoft Teams. And this is probably also not the intention you wanted them to have. So you have to think about that. And also one last example I had there, we made a lot of live events with one of my customers and so on. And normally I use a Bluetooth headset, a certified Bluetooth headset. And sometimes it was just noisy and so on. And they said, yeah, it's your Bluetooth connection and so on. 2 weeks ago, I discovered that we connected to a firewall on the customer side, and the customer just had blocked all UPN ports. And the UPN ports are responsible for a good audio connection as well. So those are the little things where you can improve work tremendously and give users a better user experience. And also, what you have to make sure is you need to communicate with key persons, even if your organization is not reachable. So that means consider your network is down. Consider you can't reach anything in your organization. Something didn't work there. So, or what happened on the other side, what happens if Microsoft 365 is not accessible? So people can't work, they can't connect through Teams, they do not have email and so on. So they do not have any access here. And you also have, if you talk about crisis communication, you need to have kind of an emergency planning situation where I said, okay, if I cannot reach anyone, I use my cell phone, I use a landline, I use a third-party service, which is outside the normal stuff I'm currently operating. So this is also something which is really important to have that in place if you're talking about that. And also, executives want to communicate in situations like that they said, okay, I do not want to send out an email to every single employee we have or an email to everyone and so on. So you need to make them humans again. And this is where live events again come into place, that you say, okay, I have to do a good live event and to do that. So the first topic I wanted to talk about is how can you enable a good communication site? And Microsoft did a really good job in the beginning where they said, okay, you can set up a SharePoint Crisis communication site. It's part of the SharePoint Lookbook. You just go in there, look at SharePoint Lookbook, and you can provision it from there. You have already a beautiful site design here in place. You can build your communication site on top of that, and you also have a lot of information on that. And also consider that normally we were all in a very stressful situation, but we need to stay as communicators and as supporters of our team members. So we need to provide them content in a very fast and easy and consumable way. So this is also something, don't invent the planet new. Just go and use what Microsoft provides there and make that an easy plan. So what we can look here, and I'm just moving back to a short demonstration to show you how that looks like. I have prepared that to look at, where do you find the lookbook? If you go to lookbook, Microsoft.com, you can just go there and see the examples And what you can find here is different various examples you have in here. And you see here, there is a crisis communication side. You see the design I just showed you on the slide deck. And what you can do, you can go here and say, okay, add to your tenant. And then you have the template very easy in your tenant. So what you need to log in as a global administrator, and then it gets deployed on the site you want. I already prepared that, and you see here, if I look at that, I'm in Contoso because I always work with the Contoso tenant, and you see here, I have already the site deployed, and I can just go in here, adopt it, and make changes to things I need to communicate and so on. And you have you have a mega menu in there. You can post your emergency numbers and so on. And also, to give you a pro tip, make this page available also from external. So don't force your people to connect through a VPN to your organization to get that kind of access. Just let them go into there. Because what are people looking there? What are my emergency numbers? What do I need to do safe and so on? And also consider it in that way. People go now back to work, the industry, the businesses are opening up and so on. You also can give them tips, how to return to work, what is in there, do they need to wear masks when they are in the office or things like that. Also consider that. And if we look at that, also make it very visible and easy to understand. So highlight the response teams so that people know if we are in an emergency, whom do I need to contact? And what are the people who are responsible for that? Because there are teams who can do that and help you with all of your questions. So use that, and also use that kind of communication side. So back to my slide deck is the second thing what I learned, and I'm working out of Europe, and I see a lot of customers who said, okay, we are using Microsoft Teams for the whole organization. And what I learned with some of my customers is a part was missing for them, and the part was Yammer, because they were looking for a communication channel which they can use in an organization-wide manner. So consider you're working in a large organization with 50,000 users which are working in different entities, and they are all perfectly set up with Microsoft Teams. So the teams work together in Microsoft Teams, they can communicate in there and so on. You have an intranet in place, but you do not have a place where people can just communicate in a very broad level. And this is where Yammer came into place, that you can use Yammer as an org-wide communication enabler. And what I learned with that, and I love Yammer a lot, is that Yammer makes the universe a smaller place, and it connects people in a very nice and emotional way as well. So what you can do here is enable Yammer. It can also give executives a platform. So one of my customers, the CIO, he just uses Yammer since a couple of years now, and he just uses Yammer every evening. He recorded a little video from himself, and he said, okay, what are we doing next? What are we planning? What is our crisis communication look like? How many employees might be affected by any changes we have in here, and so on. So he made a very transparent communication with the whole team, and people can just go there and inform themselves and ask him questions. So very often what I see is that many people they get anxious about the future. They didn't know, do I lose my job? Do I have to work short time? Do I get a pay cut? Or whatever. And anything around that, if you have a very transparent communication, and if you share that also from a management perspective, it makes it much easier for your employees also to communicate about that. What I saw here is the benefits if you enable Yammer as an org-wide communication is that you can also integrate it now in Teams. And that means if you have your teams already working together, they can simply switch into the Yammer app directly out of the team app and look what is going on in the whole organization. And one of my pro tips is enable please the new Yammer look and feel. It's currently rolled out, and if you haven't enabled it yet, just try it, because people love things which look pretty and look new, and this also will help them to use it and to love the new communication channels here. So just showing you how that looks like. I'm going back to my presentation, and what I have done here is, if I go here into Yammer and into my Yammer communication, and you see here, I'm in the virtual marathon community. I can ask and do things in here. I have also my all company feed here, and the all company feed is very often used for corp communication, or also for the management to make an org-wide communication possible. And also, one of the main tips I wanted to show you there, if you haven't switched to the new Yammer look and feel, you can do that very easily. If you're a Yammer admin, just go into the Yammer admin center and change it from there, where you go here. Sorry, that was the wrong one. Do it again. So, just 1 second. Just going back. Into my Yammer feed. So loading again. And go here into the Network Admin Center. If you're still in the old Yammer portal, you will find it here on the left, the little wheel. And what you have here, there's a new menu item. It's called the new Yammer preview item. And you can switch back to classic Yammer. You can go into enable the new Yammer as an opt-in, or you can just enable the new Yammer as default. And what I've seen so far with my customers is that many just switched into the new view by default and have it enabled, and others, like I did here, who likes toggles, like many of our MVPs have them with a toggle enabled here, where you can just switch it on or off like you want. And also what I saw here is you have some things like, you say, if you have a water cooler community in here and so on, you can add people here, you can communicate with them and so on. And also one of the important part is you can easily integrate a Yammer group into your crisis communication site on SharePoint, and that means people who prefer to get and just consume information, they go to the SharePoint site, they look in here, and they can read directly from there. And another main point before I switch to the next topic is you also can go in here, and if you prefer it in Outlook, you also see some of the capabilities in Outlook. You can like posts, you can answer to posts, and so on. So it's a really great integration in here. So back to my presentation, and the next one would be Microsoft Teams live events. So what I learned with Teams live event, I got the challenge from my customers that they said, okay, Martina, we are 3 people, we have to onboard 15,000 users in the next 3 weeks. How can we do that? Our support team is not able to support every single person with a support ticket. We just can't do that. How can we scale, and how can we help here to do it in a more easier way? So one of the things is what we did set up with them. We trained them on doing live events, that we said, okay, make a live event, post an announcement in the live event with the most used FAQs you have or we have collected. So very often what we saw is people struggle with enable themselves into MFA. or people struggle into connecting to an event. People don't know how to manage devices, so how to switch their microphones, their webcams, and so on. So all those funny things who worked in there. And what we did in the beginning is we just made live events 2 times a week, where we said, if you have any question, don't open up a support ticket, go into the session, open the Q&A, ask us the questions, we will show you the basic things. The benefit here is Teams live events, they reach the whole organization. Microsoft just extended live event scenarios, so you can have them. And also, if you're building a community, and this is a pro tip in any community, use it regularly. Don't give up if you haven't a lot of attendees in the first 2 live events. Make it every week at the same time, announce it, speak about that, invite others, and so on. So make it a habit so that people know every Wednesday, 8 a.m., my first coffee drink is having a live event, and here's some tips from our IT organization. Also, what we discovered here is when we started doing live events, the management wanted that as well. They said, oh, that's cool. I want to speak with all their organization. Please show me to do that. And the thing is, why I called it train them to do that is live events is nothing you can do out of stretch. You have to train it. You need to know what works, what doesn't work. You need the professional producer. You need to set up a good webcam. You need to have good light. You need to have a microphone and the speaker and so on. So this is all what we have to learn. And also, what you can do here, if you need to scale and you do it regularly, the live event is recorded. You can publish it on Microsoft Stream. You can integrate it again into your SharePoint site, and people can consume it later and read from the tips. So my tips, if you're starting with live events, is first of all, please follow John Moore. He is the best person to speak about live events, because I learned a ton from his experience in here. But the main tip is please always use 3 persons in the beginning. Use a producer, make someone a presenter, and also use a moderator who looks at Q&A, who can answer questions, who can keep you up in speed. It's very hard if you do that all alone, and if you are not familiar with the technology and how to do that, it's hard in the beginning. Make it a habit, same time per week, and also make it short and interactive. So the best practice we made a 10 to 20 minutes presentation, and then we had 20 minutes Q&A, and it worked. People spoke to us, we answered questions, we showed them live what works and what doesn't work. And this was also something which is really important in there. Just back to the presentation, what I have here, you have 2 possibilities to run a live event. So first of all, I'm going back to Yammer and into a community. What you can do here is you can create a live event directly out of Yammer if you want that. The other option is you can also go into your Teams channel, and if you have the calendar here, you can also go here, set up, and go here to live event. And what you do here is set up a title for that, also date and time, and also provide an info about the live event. And then you add the presenters. So I'm adding Adele as a presenter in here, and you can also change roles. Another pro tip, if you're starting with live events, don't start with 2 producers. They get totally confused. They do not know what the other producer is doing and so on. Just train them to be a producer, but keep the producer a single role. This was at least the best practice I discovered in there. So you can change the roles, you can invite as many presenters as you want, and then you can set it up. And the next thing here is You can set it up for only a selected persons, so only selected people in your organization, or you make it an org-wide event. So that means everyone in your organization can watch it, or you go into a public event. Public event is this what we are doing here. It's anonymous. Everyone on that planet with a sharing link can share the live event and attend it. Normally, it works with an org-wide event as well. Another pro tip I can give you here, if you're working as an external guest with a customer, you can still be a presenter in their live event. The only thing you have to do first is to move into their tenant, and then you can be a presenter in that organization as well. And then going down, you see here, you can select the recording will be available to attendees. If you're training live events, you switch that off for the first thing. You can have an engagement report. Don't forget to enable Q&A, because otherwise the attendees can't ask you any questions. And also what you can do, you can add captions if you want that, if they are enabled, and so on, and then you can schedule it. So if you schedule now the live event and you do that, what happens here, you get here the presenter and producer link, and also you get here an attendee link. And this is also a good recommendation, is use an URL shortener and post the attendee link on a calendar so that people can consume it every week and so on. So you can do that from that perspective as well. So to tell you some fun stories about that, what I saw in the last couple of weeks is that some of my customers, they turned off meeting recordings due to security, data privacy, whatever reasons. So people could do a meeting, but they couldn't record that. And then we saw that the amount of live events started to grow. And what we see then is complaints that users said, okay, I have to do 20 live events at the same time, and it doesn't work because the limitation was 16 concurrent live events, which is currently extended by Microsoft. And we asked them, why do you need a live event? Yeah, because I need to record the session. So also think about that. If from an IT perspective, you thought it was a good idea to disable recording for your users, think again and probably change that policy. Because the user doesn't understand it. He wants a recording of their weekly meetings so that people who are currently on holiday or somewhere else can watch the recording later. If you disable their functionality, they probably go into another tool. They create live events, or they go into Skype or any other tool where they are allowed to record meetings. So this is one of the tips we have in here. So the other thing is what I just wanted to show you here in Teams. What I also saw here is I wanted just to show you briefly how I can integrate Yammer into my Teams client. So I can go here into more apps, and then I can look for communities. And here you see you can add the Yammer integration into your Teams client. And this is also what I saw is really important for people, that they are currently working in their team, but they can just move on into their Yammer community if they want that. So people can add that by themselves, or if you want to do them a favor, you can also roll it out on a broad level through the administration center and give it in here as a team application and add that for every person in your organization. Just go into manage apps, and then you can publish the community application into the Teams clients if they have that. Also, one of the things I also wanted to show you, back to the live events, you can go in here and go into live event policies and also into the live event settings. The live event settings are important if you, for instance, want to have a custom support link for them. You can also enable third-party providers, or you can also go in here and set up the global settings in here. So you can allow scheduling of live events. You wanna, as you see, you can also allow transcriptions for attendees. And you can also say, okay, what do I want? Do I want to record my live event or not? And also what is important here, transcription. As you know, I live in Europe. I talk a lot with worker councils and privacy officers and so on. And very often they said, we do not want any transcription. We do not want recordings and so on. Think about people who can't, who are visually impaired, or they need to read the transcript, or you need to think about people with other disabilities. Those are the things which help those people to be on track and still feel included in a community. They do not see each other and so on. So also think about that kind of stuff. So back to my presentation. Next one is the Microsoft Health Bot, and I will just look at that. The Health Bot can help you because it scales. So it's a bot. He can handle a lot of users at the same time. You do not have to care about that. What I like about that functionality is you can implement a handover to an agent, so that if the bot runs out of answers, he can just go and say, okay, I will hand over that to Martina or to Tony, and they will answer your questions. It's very simple to integrate here, and you can also use it for other processes. So for instance, if you think about, I want to have a bot in my system, but I do not care about the health bot, you can integrate your own bot system with that. You can integrate the Q&A maker bot, and you can also integrate that in a very easy way. So what you can do here is the bot we have using in here is just out of software as a service in Azure, and you are creating the health bot in the system in there. So back to my demonstration here, and I'm pretty sure I talked so much that I timed out. So Edge totally get bored about my voice and signed me out in the meantime. So what you are doing here is, if you want to integrate that, and I just want to show you that from the beginning. If I'm here in portalazure.com, I'm looking first at the SaaS apps, software as a service, and you see we already provisioned the health bot in here. If you haven't done so, you can also go to add, and here you have the Microsoft Healthcare bot. And you can just add it to your subscription and then try it out. So I've already done that, and I have my health bot in here. And how does it look like? You see here, you have different scenarios. You see here, it's a back to work scenario. I have a Martina scenario. I have a support scenario, and I have a handoff to my agent scenario. And I can work with that. You can also add new scenarios in here, whatever you want. On the other side, you can also go into templates. And this is a cool thing because you see the bot grows. So you see the back to work scenario was added a couple of days ago. You're just adding that because currently you probably just want to have a support communication channel where people know, okay, what do I have to do in here and so on. And you also see you can have booking appointments or any other scenarios. Just add it and import the template, and then you can have it in there. The other thing, what you can do here is you can also add localization. So for instance, we are in an international event. So for instance, if you have users and you see here Germany, and you want to add German language as well, you can just do and add that translation part in there. So this is also something which is very easy to configure. And also from the configuration, you can also check up what will you ask the customers or what the bot will ask them, and also what they will do in here. So for instance, if you want to verify symptoms and so on, and do things like that. And also what you can do here is you can also add privacy information here, so that you say, okay, the persons who ask the questions are able to delete everything which was in the conversation, which is also kind of important, that you see, okay, this is what we want to do, but we also want to stay, give a certain privacy level in place and do not record everything. So for instance, you can go here to automatic welcome and say, okay, this is my bot scenario and so on. So let's try it out, and you can try it out very easily just here with the chat functionality. So the web chat is loading here, you see my welcome messages here, and I can type my message. And the message might be, I'm just typing my name in here, and what you see here in the scenario is that you see you can add cards to that. You can say, okay, how to be served at work, and then you get an answer from the bot and so on. So this is what you can do. You see, as I already showed you, we have a transcript, different languages in there. If I have that languages implemented, the user can just switch to that information and do that. On the other side, you also see some other information that you say, okay, what happens if I type help? What is the bot doing here? And here see, what can I do to help me? So for instance, I can just delete my data and say, forget me, and so on. And also what you can do here is, I have fever, and then you go through some of the information. This is because I hadn't the forget me finished, so I want to delete it. Yes. And then the data is deleted, and then I can ask him a question. I have fever, and I get some information back, and he wants to have additional information, and he will direct me to that. And also what you can see here, if I go back to help, you can also get infos here where we say, okay, I want to talk with an agent and so on. So speaking about crisis communication, if you have a small team who has to handle a lot of tickets, you can just go in there and make a bot available for the most common questions in there, which helps you as well to scale and get a good communication in place. So back to my presentation. Last part I wanted to talk about is governance and security. And the main part I want to mention here is your users trust you. So you need to give them a trustful experience and to keep them running and have it in a secure way. Also, one of the learnings I had there, please enable your users. If you disable functionalities, that just leads you to shadow IT. And believe me, it's a very big market right now because people say, okay, I can't record meeting, I use another tool. And this is not what we want there. We want to be in a supported scenario. Also from a security perspective, and I know very often I sound like repeating over and over again what I'm doing here, but please start with MFA. Leaked credentials are the most unsecure way currently to breaking into tenants or breaking into communications in there. If you want to scale, please start to scale with live events, publish news, use crisis communication, use your champion, start with a bot, support in that way. And also do not forget one single thing, which is really important, is we are all learning together. It's a new situation for everyone, and it's new for all of us. And this is also important, we are learning together. We have new experience. You will see our virtual experience, our virtual conferences will get better and better. But we have to learn, and this is a good situation because learning means going forward, moving forward, and do things in a better way. I promised you I'm sharing some of the links here, and as I always try to finalize my session on time, Thank you for joining this session. I hope you liked it, and I hope you think it was interesting for me. If you have any questions, post it in Q&A. I will stay here in the live event and answer any questions. The other thing is just contact me. The best way is ask a question through Twitter. I will try to answer all your questions, and then happy to see you at the next events. Stay safe.